Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Teep show for UFC veterans and casuals alike, where we break down the biggest comings and goings in the sport we love, mixed martial arts. This is a sad day or a very happy day, depending on how you feel about my co-host. JMan will not be joining today as he's trapped in a hurricane without Wi-Fi, that Neanderthal. So once more into the breach, dear friends, we have our first solo show in Teep show history. Let the cheering commence. I'm Alex, finally alone and without anyone to tell me I'm wrong about anything. And as always, we'll get straight into it. A very short around the horn this week. Torrez Finney, 5'8 middleweight, who's built like a Lego, secured a UFC contract on his third attempt after two successful bids to get in via Dana White's Contender Series. For those who don't know, DWCS is a competition put on by the UFC that are basically elimination matches. If you win convincingly, you're on the UFC roster. Torrez had won before, but not in a good enough manner. He wasn't fighting the best of the best, as you can guess. Why are we talking about him then? Please go Google this man. He doesn't look real. If you're 5'8", you're probably a featherweight or a 145-pounder usually. This guy's 185 at 5'8". He's built like a brick shithouse. He got 3 chances because he looks so goofy. So good for you, Torrez. Shout out. Good luck in the rest of your short UFC career. Movsar Evloev, who I think is the boring boogeyman at 145 pounds, announced he will not accept a replacement fighter for Aldo Sterling on UFC 307. This is really tough. Evloev fought Diego Lopez, the fan favorite Diego Lopez. Coincidentally, Diego was a short notice replacement. Evloev has been passed in the rankings since that fight by Diego, despite being unbeaten. The difference, Evloev has fought once, and Lopez has fought 5 times. Call it like it is. Russian fighters generally don't accept short-term replacements unless it's for a belt. Khabib versus Al Iaquinta for the lightweight belt and Volk Islam 2 come to mind for times that Russian fighters do take replacements. Again, both of those were for a championship fight. Otherwise, they want their full fight camp on one opponent. It's understandable. You can't make them take a fight. But it's no wonder Lopez has shot past Evloev in the rankings. He's available. I mean, he fought a guy on 4 hours' notice. Evloev's shooting himself in the foot by not taking someone down the rankings just to be active. It's not anyone's fault but his. He can't get a fight. And he'll stay at 6, where he was the first pick in last week's draft. Which fighter outside the top 5 do you think will win a championship next year? Short around the horn, straight into a very fun UFC Fight Night Paris. Quick recap. I have to lead off by saying Michael Bisping is the worst sports commentator I've ever come across. That's not exaggerated. I disagree immediately with about 40% of the things that come out of his mouth. Who's tired, who's not, who's rocked, who's not, what was a big strike and what wasn't. 40% is a huge number. I mean, they're supposed to be not factually, but almost factually correct. They're commentating on a fight, on what they see. Their former fighters are supposed to be able to diagnose what's going on. And I find myself allegedly or correctly not as an actual fighter, but thinking he's dead wrong. Obviously, I think Joe Rogan's best in the business there. Despite what you might think about his podcast, I think he's amazing at diagnosing things in the pocket, on the ground, and Bisping is always wrong. So Bisping was on the call. It was brutal. I actually muted it for a bit because I just thought he was so off. Anyway, we're going to go from the top. We're going to go from the money fight down. Okay. We start off with Renato Moicano versus Benoit Saint-Denis, French versus Brazil. First off, guys, Moicano fought with one of the ugliest shoulder injuries I've ever seen. He tweeted out the X-ray, or someone tweeted out the X-ray of what his shoulder looked like. To me, it looked like his clavicle was completely off the bone. I'm not sure if it was his clavicle, but something was completely off the bone. You could see it. There was a picture of him from behind, a picture of his back before the fight. There's, a bone looks like it's sticking out. If you're looking for it, you can actually see it in the fight. It is disgusting. I mean, it's hard to believe that he was able to be, we'll get into it, but it's hard to believe he was able to fight at all with how bad this injury was. That's how tough this guy is. Obviously, Benoit, not everyone's cup of tea, but he's a French Foreign Legion fighter, Special Forces. Has got the Templars cross of the Hospitaliers or the Templars for his bravery in action. He's elite level, aggressive, elite level tough. So both these guys, someone there was going to be a finish. These guys don't have enough defense for that to be avoided. And it was going to take a lot because these guys are both as tough as they come. These are two of my top 5 favorite fighters in the UFC because enough listeners have told me I have a million favorites. My top 5 are, in no order, Robert Whittaker, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Dan Hooker, and Renato Moicano, and Benoit Saint-Denis. So Paulo Costa was stripped from his ranking after the Strickland fight. Good Lord. But I was going to be happy and sad no matter how this fight played out. It was a massive fight for me, and it was a massive fight for the lightweight division. It seems like we aren't getting a lot of ranked matchups right now. These two were both very hot, with BSD coming off a loss against Dustin Poirier that would have catapulted it up to number 3, where he had Poirier in real trouble. And Moicano riding a 5-fight win streak, including an extremely impressive one last time out against Jalen Turner at UFC 300. JMan, my host, thinks Moicano has the best grappling in the division outside of Islam. And while I think that's disrespectful to Arman and maybe Charles Oliveira, the performance he put on Saturday makes me think he might be right. For the second straight fight, he contained a seemingly bigger absolute beast on the ground and battered away. Renato took down BSD easy. He caught a kick and spun him around until he got a butterfly sweep, got him down to the ground. And this wasn't Brendan Allen in round 1, which we'll get to a little bit later. It wasn't someone taking top position and just holding it for the round. Moicano absolutely battered BSD's face. What was scary, I think, for BSD's future was he seemed to have no inkling of how to defend himself on the ground. Almost like he was willing to eat the blows. But when your back's on the ground, you can't take one to eat one. It's not like standing. You're just eating. You're not giving anything back. Moicano eventually took his back. BSD had no idea how to defend from the ground or seemed uninterested in doing so. Moicano is great, legit elite level grappler. So this isn't the end of BSD's career. But it was a surprising wake-up call for sure. Moicano took round 1 in what I believe was a 10-8. Should have been a 10-8 if it wasn't. BSD actually wins the next round unanimously on all 3 cards. And then the fight stopped because he has 2 eyes. His right eye is completely swollen shut, and his left eye is getting there. It's not the end of BSD's career, but especially for a guy that has a good wrestling base, it was a little shocking how futile his efforts were and how he was controlled on the ground. Maybe Moicano is just that good. BSD, like I said, actually won the second round. It's tough to have a fight stopped when you unanimously win the round before. But when both eyes are shut, there's only one way that fight's going. What's next for these guys? Moicano want money. That was his speech I was in attendance for. Beautiful speech, really heartfelt, really from the inner chambers of the heart. No, the guy wants to get paid. I wish he was going to fight up in the rankings, but I think it's unlikely. Why? He called out 2 people, Paddy Pimblett and Dan Hooker. Hooker makes a ton of sense if he's trying to win a title. Moicano's he's trying to do that, but money is number 1, and he's almost definitely going to make more money headlining a UK fight night or co-maining on a card against Paddy over there. And that's almost certainly easier money than Hooker would be. I'd love to see Dan, but Paddy and Moicano have some history, a little fake beef, and that's going to make it easy to set things up. It's a travesty. No, actually, it's just a joke that Moicano didn't move up in the rankings after that fight, after absolutely dominating the guy right below him. He sticks at 11. If we're talking about fights going forward, I like him today against Gamrot at 8, against Dariush at 7, Hooker at 5. So Moicano will fight Patty next. I think that's pretty done and dusted. What's next for BSD? It's a tough L. Definitely going to take some time out after the battering he got. I could actually see RDA cut down to 155 for a fight that excites him. RDA only takes fights that excite him now. I guess he's at that privileged point in his career. He had a belt for a hot second, but he only goes down to lightweight. Certainly, he fights mostly at welterweight nowadays. He only goes down to 55 if he likes the matchup, but he will go down, and I think that's a good one for BSD to get another name on his record, and an old name, to be fair, but another name, and against a guy who can grapple as well and prove himself there. Guys, BSD is one of the only French fighters ranked right now. That's a big market the UFC is trying to expand and develop. He's going to get something cushy from the UFC. Or he could get something hard, but something that he wouldn't deserve, like another fight up in the rankings, like against the Rafael Fiziev at 9, who will stand and bang with him. On the cushy side, the UFC wouldn't dare make Patty fight him. So I'm going to go with RDA or an unranked guy. Mateusz Genrat is there at 8, but not a great matchup. And I think BSD is a little bit of the golden goose. And the UFC is not going to want to slay it that early. The co-main in this fight was Nasruddin Imavov versus Brendan Allen. Middleweight for me is the most fun division right now. And this was another fight born to deliver a contender. Allen is the guy your friends in Brooklyn like, the ones with ripped jeans. He's the hipster pick. He was on a 6-fight win streak against guys not high up in the division. So the exciting thing about him was he had fresh matchups with everybody. He hadn't fought anybody yet. If you're not familiar with his game, he's an ace jiu-jitsu player, grappler with some active hands. Not great, but serviceable. No one seemed to fucking mind that he went to an absolute war with Chris freaking Curtis, the 15th ranked guy last time out. My co-host put his head in the sand and said, "Oh no, it was a bad matchup." No. I mean, Allen went to war with a guy who's been shown to be pretty much middle fodder and one of the only ranked guys he's fought. Allen looked sluggish, like surprisingly not with it at points when transitioning on the ground, as if he was really rocked or hurt. And he hadn't taken much damage at those points. Imavov is what he is. He's a 1-2 merchant, very long jab. He's going to throw the left and then the right behind it, and he's going to land. It's kind of like a French Sean Strickland with much worse cardio and a willingness to get dirty on the ground, where Sean doesn't really. The problem was Brennan got him on the ground with ease in round 1 before not doing a thing with it. Imavov came back, showed his kickboxing background in round 2, better takedown defense, reversed some positions, landed some ground and pound. Look, Imavov did damage here, but nothing screamed he was going to be able to compete with any of the big 4 of Whitaker, Adesanya, Strickland, and the champ, DDP. He, of course, already has a loss to Strickland where he was dominated. Some will disagree because he did a lot of damage, but Imavov, not my guy. What's next? DDP fights Strickland next. Izzy should take that Imavov fight for easy money, but I don't think he wants to fight nobodies. If Whitaker beats Hamzat, he should get the next shot. So I'm going to say loser of that fight between Hamzat and Whitaker fights Imavov, or the hasn't been seen in forever, the Italian Martian Marvin Vettori. Real quick, Brian Battle versus Kevin Jousset. The fight was not fun to watch until the 3rd round, where it reminded me of Nico Price versus Alex Moreno. As in, these guys are so slow, but they're standing and banging. Let's get the good out of the way. Battle had a great post-fight Mike moment. You think the Butcher is going to lose to a Frenchman in a fist fight? That was great stuff. That stuff counts for more than it should when making your next fight. Problem is, I don't see where Battle has an advantage over anyone. He's slow striking. I guess he has a good chin. He tried and failed for takedowns for the entirety of the first round, so that's not it. I mean, Jousset is a judo black belt, so, not the worst thing ever not to be able to take him down. But Battle's not a wrestler. I don't see who he's beating on the feet at a competitive level. Not much for that prospect. Next, we had Matt Frevola versus Ziam. As you know by now, my host has a lot of disrespectful takes. and maybe none more disrespectful than when he labeled Ziam the best French lightweight on the card. Of course, Benoit Saint Denis was headlining. Ziam absolutely looked the part. Frevola is a great hammer. He hits really hard. He's aggressive. He loves to come forward. But well-rounded or high ceiling isn't something anyone would confuse with his game. Frevola does have a nascent wrestling game and got a takedown in top position in round 1, but didn't do a thing with it before Ziam reversed it and got some G&P in. Ziam dominated on the feet. He eventually would dominate in the grappling. He's got a long jab. Not much else to write home about, except there was one of the nicest in grappling finishes I've seen where Ziam had a standing body lock on Frevola. Frevola's corner called for him to turn around. Frevola turned around to break out, and Ziam threw a high knee to knock Frevola out cold. What's next? For Frevola, either a nobody or someone looking to build their name off of him. Ziam, funnily enough, lost last to a friend of the podcast, Terrence McKitty, in 2022. But he's rattled off 4 in a row since. Who's next? I apologize to this guy because I match it up with like 80% of the UFC lightweight roster that's trying to get a ranking spot. But how about Drew Dober? The guy's got the best chin in the world. He's the 17th best lightweight permanently. And yeah, it's like a rite of passage to beat him to get into the rankings. Okay. Thank God for the end of that. I said it was a good UFC fight night in Paris. That is just a little inside baseball. It really wasn't. It's kind of disappointing. Weird scoring, of course. But what is exciting is we have another card this weekend, and that's UFC 307. This is the oldest pay-per-view in history that's what ESPN says, from the combined ages of its participants. You have 41-year-old Ovin St. Preux, Court McGee, who's like from 2012, is on here. Wonderboy Thompson is on here. Alex Pereira is 37 himself, and we're going to get straight into it. My favorite fight on the card, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, the pride of Simpsonville, South Carolina, the great white hope, is a plus 175 dog against Joaquin Buckley. I almost said Joaquin Phoenix because I've been watching a lot of Joker 2 commercials. Joaquin Buckley is a real dog. He's like Kevin Holland in that they're both too small for middleweight, but move down to welterweight, and they are scary there. This is my favorite fight, bar none. Not the 2 championship fights, not Kevin Holland, not Kayla Harrison. Any fight with Wonderboy Thompson is going to rank up there. Now, there are 2 types of Wonderboy fights, and literally only 2. There are fights where his opponent tries to stand with him, and Wonderboy almost always wins that. Matt Brown, early in his career, is the only fight I can remember that wasn't the case. Then there's the Wonderboy fight where the opponent has a grappling advantage on Wonderboy and takes him down and keeps him there. Very, very low bar. Almost everyone has a grappling advantage on Wonderboy, but still. So we should have this Saturday an instance of the first kind of Wonderboy fight where both guys are going to stand and bang. I tell you, I was a little worried about Wonderboy coming into this fight. I thought this could be a retirement fight, put the gloves down. He's not going to win a title anymore. You know, his last chance was Shavkat Rakhmonov, and I watched him lose that in person. But then I saw an interview with Wonderboy where he was talking about that Shavkat fight. And the interviewer asked him whether he was upset that these guys say they're going to stand and trade with him and then always go to the grappling. And he showed, if you know Wonderboy Thompson, the nicest guy, very mild-mannered, I would say. And Wonderboy showed some fire. Wonderboy said, yeah, it pisses me off a little bit. These guys, you know, always think that they can stand with me. And then once they see how that's going, they immediately go to the grappling. And yeah, it pisses me off. I mean, it's fine, you know, and it's okay. And those guys are great. This is what you're going to get from Wonderboy. But the fact that he was a little pissed off makes me think that he has a little something left in the tank. So I no longer think this is a retirement for Wonderboy, although that is, I mean, you could get good odds on it. Guy's 41. So there's not a welterweight alive, as long as I've been a fan of UFC, that I would take in a standing-only battle with Wonderboy. I won't hear. Buckley says he's not going to wrestle. No, I think he is. I think he will try to wrestle. It's one thing to say you're not going to wrestle Wonderboy, and it's another thing to be a fucking gangster like Kevin Holland and actually do it when you're getting pieced up on the feet. I said that Buckley was like Holland and that they were both too small to be middleweights, but are dangerous at welterweight. Buckley is different in that he's actually committed to making the weight cut. again and again, and he looks good. He's coming off a very good W against Mr. Alphabet Soup, Nursultan Ruziboev. Of course, why not? Who was very highly thought of from Uzbekistan, knocked out Bruno Ferreira in his debut. I mean, he was a real guy. Buckley took it and hurt him at various points. He on the feet, he's a monster, and that's why I hope that he stands and trades with Wonderboy. But again, it comes down to, if you take wrestling out of the equation, I'm going to take the guy that was 40-0 in kickboxing every single time. And that's my first underdog of the night, is Stephen Thompson plus 175 against Buckley. Now, Thompson gets taken down by a lot of guys, but that's because he was at the top of the rankings and he was fighting the best guys. Gilbert Burns, Bilal Muhammad, those are top tier wrestlers and grapplers. Buckley is not that. He's got a little bit of skill. If you watch the Duraev fight, you can see that he's got some wrestling in him, that he's able to do it, but that's not his, if he starts shooting a lot, that's a sign that things probably aren't going well for him. And I think Wonderboy's takedown defense can stand up against a Buckley takedown. A Bilal takedown, that's a different thing. But Buckley, wrestling's not his MO. I got Wonderboy here. Dog, love it, plus 175. I'll be taking him in every parlay. Second fight, Roman Dolidze versus Kevin Holland. I think this is a very interesting fight as well. Roman Dolidze is a plus 120 dog. Holland is minus 150, so a close odds matchup there. And I think that's accurate. I think this is a binomial tree. I think there's only two ways this goes. I think, first of all, Holland's going to be way, 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 way faster. Okay. Roman Dolidze is a black belt in like 8 different ground operations. Okay. He's like master of combat, calf splicer, black belt. He's got a million qualifications on the ground. So is this fight going to stand, or is Dolidze going to get Holland to the ground? Holland's faster. Watch Dolidze. Don't watch Dolidze's fight against Anthony Smith at lightweight. Okay. Watch Dolidze's fight against Nasruddin Imavov to see how fast he truly is. He gets the tar beaten out of him. And he's got elite levels of chin and durability, no doubt. But he only looks fast when he's fighting Anthony Smith, who allegedly sucks. So it all comes down to where you think the fight's going to take out. Kevin's a black belt in jiu-jitsu as well. I mean, I hate, and Jonah hates as well, the black belt and jiu-jitsu thing. Everyone's got one. That being said, his takedown defense has looked a lot better since he started working on it, basically. He's so much faster than Dolidze. I think he wins rounds, and I think you're betting on the volume of Holland, who's not always a high-volume guy, to be fair, but he's going to have such a speed advantage on Dolidze. I think he's going to be able to get in and out a lot faster. I don't think Dolidze is going to be able to catch him. I think he can get him to the ground 1 round, but this is a 3-round fight. So if it stays standing, it's Holland all the way, and for that reason, I got to go Holland 2 out of 3. I like that a lot, and that's at his preferred. He's going to be small. He's going to be a lot smaller than Dolidze. Dolidze is probably like 210 on fight night, maybe a little bit less, maybe 205. But Holland is going to be close. He's going to be like 190, barely cuts. He's just so much faster. It's hard to see Dolidze putting up any kind of competition on the feet. The only time he's ever done that was against Marvin Vettori, who's similarly slow as dirt. So our third fight, Ketlen Vieira versus Kayla Harrison. Ketlen Vieira is a plus 605 underdog to Kayla Harrison's minus 1055 favorite. I'm going to go on a rant here. I'm not even going to preview the fight. I'm going to go on a tirade. This is unbelievable matchmaking, not in a good way. The women's bantamweight division is the women's redheaded stepchild of the UFC. Like men's flyweight, it's been discussed cutting it entirely. There are barely enough 135-pound women on the roster to even make a top 15. Okay, the UFC pulled off its biggest coup in recent memory when it signed Kayla Harrison last year. Kayla Harrison, if you don't know, is a 2-time gold medalist in judo. She competed at 145 pounds for the PFL, but planned on and did make the 135-pound cut for the UFC. She is, without a semblance of a doubt, the biggest women's star at 135. She's a top 5 women's star in the world before she fought in the UFC, fighting in freaking PFL. The last time, really, the UFC had a situation like this. They signed Bellator's former lightweight champion, Mike Chandler. He fought once. He got a knockout. That's important. And in the next fight, he was fighting for the UFC men's lightweight title. It's important to note he got a knockout against Dan Hooker in that debut. That it was memorable, all you can ask for, yada, yada. He was given a title fight in the UFC's deepest division after one fight. Kayla Harrison has just one loss on her resume. She absolutely dominated Holly Holm, one of the only names left at women's bantamweight in her debut. She did not get a finish, but she did it in the worst division in the UFC, the shallowest division, a division recently in danger of being permanently cut, and it's still not out of the woods, I bet. And you signed the world's biggest star in that division that's struggling like that. And you're choosing, the UFC is choosing not to give her a title fight. Not to put the biggest star in the division, who almost everyone agrees is the best fighter in the division. She's a 10-1 favorite this Saturday in the title fight. Instead, we get Juliana Pena. Juliana Pena versus the title holder, Raquel Pennington. You might know Juliana. She beat Amanda Nunes one time. Do you know the Izzy Adesanya quote where he says Alex Pereira will be the guy in the bar someday, pointing at the TV and saying, I beat that guy one time? That is Juliana Pena. The one thing she's ever done in her career is beat Amanda once. In the rematch, Juliana put on one of the most embarrassing title performances ever seen. There was a 50-43 scorecard against her. There should have been at least 2. Women's bantamweight is so bad that Pena got that first title shot after going 2-2 in her previous 4. She lost to Germaine de Randamie. Never even seen her fight a year before the shot. Pena is brutal. She's brutally bad. And you have the opportunity to put Kayla Harrison, a women's global star, in the championship. You don't do it. Pena has not even fought since the rematch, where she lost 50-43, okay? Kayla didn't finish Holly. She got a freaking win. Pena has not gotten a win since her last fight. Since her last loss. This is the worst championship this is the worst championship matchmaking I can remember in UFC history. I'm serious. It blows. It blows Alex fighting the number 7 ranked guy or Bisping fighting the number 10 ranked guy out of the water. It sucks. I'm a fan of Kayla, not for her fight style, but because how she carries herself and her dominance. It's something to watch. It's the only thing to watch at 135. But instead, Kayla's a 10-1 favorite. Put on our parlays. Unbelievable. Our next fight, Jose Aldo is a plus 110 underdog versus Mario Bautista, the minus 140 favorite. That means the King of Rio is back again. A year after he came out of his surprise retirement, his surprise return, returns with a tough fight against the man right beneath him in the rankings. Mario Bautista is apparently 31. Aldo's 38. I don't want to be a birth certificate guy, but Mario Bautista looks damn near 40. And he has his whole career, so I don't doubt his age. It's just he looks really fucking old. I'm not going to be spending too much time on this one because Aldo doesn't really have a title pathway in front of him. With Sugar Sean thrown from the bantamweight belt, it had been posited that maybe Sugar Sean would fight him next. That's gone, especially because Aldo lost to the current title holder, Merab Dvalishvili. Batista's best and really only win came against Ricky Simone, who always flirts with being ranked as a bantamweight, like I flirt with the hot girls at the bar. Aldo still has world-class takedown defense. For example, he defended all 16 of Merab's takedowns when they got together with some legitimately breathtaking defense on some, but he won't have to worry about it here against Bautista. Bautista is going to utilize the whole toolkit minus wrestling. He threw a lot of knees in the Simone fight. That's flying knees, straight knees, knees in transition. Looks to fight beneath his jab. He switches stance. Doesn't matter here. I mean, it could. I don't care for the fight. Both guys will stand. I think Bautista doesn't shoot much, and it would be really hard to see him get through to Aldo, especially. Aldo is still spicy on the feet. Saw it against Jonathan Martinez. Still has his legendary low leg kick. I think he's a crisper boxer, which is why I'm surprised he's the underdog here. I think the betting odds are all about the ages, and I haven't seen Aldo slow down yet. He got a nice 2-year break from everything. So, no, he's not a championship type guy anymore. Bautista is very good. I just struggle to see how Bautista will be better on the feet or significantly better on the feet, and Aldo has a big advantage if this ever hits the mat. I'm going with the underdog, the legend, King of Rio, Jose Aldo. Our next fight is the women's bantamweight title fight. It is Raquel Pennington versus Julian. No, we're not doing that. No, I'm sorry. We're not even discussing that. I'm disgusted. What we will talk about is the 205-pound championship, the men's light heavyweight championship of the world, for a long time considered the UFC's prestige division. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. Alex Pereira puts his belt on the line for the third time this year against fellow kickboxer Khalil Rountree. Now, I want to be very clear. To defend 3 times in a year, very unusual. We're very lucky. That's a kickboxing schedule, and I think that's why we're getting so many Alex Pereira fights, is he's used to turning around in a month. That's a kickboxing schedule. Nowadays, you're lucky to get 2 UFC defenses in a year from Islam Makhachev or Sugar Sean. A lot has been made about Khalil getting this title shot. He's only number 7 in the rankings. He's coming off a drug suspension, PED suspension. And before that, his best win was Anthony Smith, who, again, allegedly fucking sucks. Why is this an amazing fight? This is the first time we've had a guy outside of maybe Sean Strickland who said he's going to stand and bang with Alex Pereira, especially during the latter stages of Alex Pereira's UFC career when he's knocked everybody out. Almost everybody, including Izzy, including Yuri, has looked to the ground game at points to try to neutralize or expose the weakness in Alex's game. And this is the first guy outside of Strickland I can remember that vowed off pursuing that avenue just to see who's the bigger man, who's the bigger kickboxer. Okay. What's also exciting is Khalil Rountree is a very scary kickboxer. We don't know who's faster between Khalil and Alex. We don't. Both these guys utilize a devastating leg kick. Alex's is quicker. The leg kick is quicker. Khalil's is more powerful. You can see that in the Eric Anders fight where he nearly takes Eric Anders' knee straight off. I mean, I can't believe Anders finished the fight. Good on him. Probably set him back some surgeries. Good Lord. Alex utilizes a very quick lower leg kick that's going to hurt a lot, and he can get in more often. But Khalil, you can only take a couple before you're really compromised. I think Alex, you can take 5 or 6 before it really starts to degrade your performance. Now, Khalil hasn't fought the best competition. His best win is against Anthony Smith, and as I mentioned earlier, it's really easy to look good and fast against Anthony Smith because, well, you know why by this point. Alex has fought best of the best and definitely has the strength of schedule advantage. That being said, Alex is a minus 465 favorite. Khalil is a plus 345 favorite. The beautiful thing about these upper weight classes is anything can happen. Look at Derek Lewis's whole career. He's the definition of anything can happen. Plus 345 is lower than where I saw it for Khalil earlier. I saw Pereira as high as minus 600 on some sites. I think if Khalil gets to plus 450 or really even plus 400, you should take a shot. Because what if Khalil Rountree is faster than Alex Pereira? What if? I mean, we don't know. We don't know who's faster. It's crazy. how powerful these guys both are. But Khalil throws hard, man. And you don't know who's faster. I know you can say, oh, we'll watch this fight, we'll watch that fight and see who's faster. You don't know until you see who goes first, who lands first. I think this line's a little disrespectful to Khalil at plus 345. I think that when you're at this high weight class, it's not like bantamweight where, unless you're Sugar Sean O'Malley, one shot isn't putting anybody out. Up here, one shot is all it takes, and these guys have enough knockouts to show it. This is a beauty of a fight. I mean, it's hard to understate or overstate how much of a lifesaver Alex Pereira has been to the UFC. He saved UFC 300. He stepped into 303 when Conor got hurt. And he's doing this again now, just a couple months later, on the eve of what it seems like moving up or down in weight, up to heavyweight to face John Jones, or down to middleweight to go get his belt back there. This is a crazy fight. I think Alex wins, but I think Alex is a little overpriced. I think Khalil is attractive at plus 345. And I think this is the biggest test for Alex on the feet since he came up to light heavyweight. I think Khalil is a harder fight for him than Yuri because Khalil is so technical. It's been said a million times. Yes, he did go to Thailand. Yes, he almost didn't return. He does have that crazy Muay Thai stance and ability. And that really translates to the kickboxing fight that we're going to expect here. So, I'm going to go, oh boy. Remember when I bet on Blades because I thought the line was bad? If Khalil gets to 400, I like Khalil. Otherwise, I think you stay away. Maybe use Alex as an anchor in some parlays, but if you're doing that, throw Kayla Harrison in 10-1, for God's sake. The difference is Kayla is a wrestler, Alex is a puncher. Anything can happen. Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. And that's that. So, thank you guys. Shortest Teep Show episode. Solo run. The bets of the night are Wonderboy plus 175, Holland minus 150, and Aldo underdog plus 110. We have a good record with underdogs. We're going to keep it going here. And that's it. I love you guys.